Imagine you are sitting in a synagogue, a local congregation, Bushey United Synagogue, to be exact.
Okay, I can picture it.
Yeah, so you're sitting in the pews, and up at the podium, there's this incredibly passionate, really high-stakes debate raging. And it's about a totally bizarre hypothetical scenario.
Oh, I love these kinds of thought experiments. What's the setup?
Right, so imagine there's only one vaccine dose left in the entire world. Just one.
Just one shot left.
Exactly. But it's not going to a modern head of state, and it's not going to a frontline medical worker. The rules of this specific debate dictate that this final dose can be given to the most important Jewish figure in all of history.
Wow.
Yeah. Who gets it?
It's a brilliant intellectual exercise, honestly, because it forces you to weigh raw historical impact against deep spiritual legacy. You are effectively asking the room, like, who is the single most indispensable person in our collective cultural memory?
Right. And today, we're doing a deep dive into a speech from that very debate. And this speech makes an impassioned swing for the fences case that this final shot absolutely has to go to King David.
King David, okay.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the author doesn't just casually stroll up to the podium and say, well, he was a pretty good king.
Right, they go much deeper than that.
They argue that David was specifically chosen by God, which implies that denying him the shot might literally be a sin.
That is quite the opening argument.
It is. But when we first meet David in the historical texts, he's not the obvious choice for anything, right? He's not a prince in waiting.
No, far from it. If you want to understand the sheer magnitude of David's later achievements, you have to look at the mechanism of his rise.
Okay.
Because he was a shepherd. And the text points out that when the prophet Samuel was sent by God to the house of Jesse to anoint a new king, well, Jesse parades his really impressive older sons before Samuel.
Like a lineup of obvious candidates.
Exactly. But David isn't even in the room. He wasn't considered a contender by his own father. He's just out there tending the sheep.
Which is really the ultimate underdog story for anyone listening who has ever felt, completely overlooked. I mean, he wasn't even invited to his own coronation tryouts.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And the author of the speech argues that this foundational humility, the sheer improbability of his rise, it never fully left him.
It stayed with him even in power.
Right, it governed how he treated people. He didn't become this paranoid tyrant. He actually became a paradigm of true friendship.
Oh, like with Jonathan?
Exactly. His loyalty to Jonathan, who was the son of his predecessor, King Saul, is still held up today as the legendary example of selfless devotion. He was deeply, deeply merciful.
Okay, I hear that, but let me introduce a little friction here.
Sure.
Being a merciful friend, having a great underdog story that makes you a wonderful neighbor. But kings don't survive on humility alone. Eventually, a king has to defend his borders.
Which is exactly why the speech pivots immediately to his military record. I mean, the moment David transforms from a forgotten shepherd into a national icon is, of course, the Goliath incident.
Right. Everyone knows the broad strokes of David and Goliath, but the author points out something really crucial about the mechanics of that fight.
Oh, the asymmetry of it.
Yes. David looks at this giant in heavy, impenetrable armor and realizes that trying to match him sword for sword is just suicide.
Right, he loses instantly.
So David understands something nobody else on that battlefield does.
Right.
He sees that a well-aimed stone from a distance beats heavy artillery up close. He completely flicks the script on how warfare is conducted.
Because for him, God is the true strength, not the heavy armor.
Exactly. I love the quote the speech includes where David yells at Goliath. He says, "You come to me with a sword, spear, and javelin, but I come against you in the name of God Almighty."
That moment is just a masterclass in asymmetrical warfare.
It really is.
David recognizes that the conventional rules of power don't apply if you shift the arena. He leverages his agility and his absolute, unwavering spiritual conviction to neutralize what was supposed to be an invincible physical threat.
Okay, but I am struggling to reconcile that with another story the author brings up. Because the text gets incredibly raw.
How so?
Well, on one hand, we have the merciful guy. The speech points out that when King Saul grew jealous and hunted David down to kill him, David actually sneaks up on Saul while he's sleeping.
Right, in the cave.
Yes, and David could have ended it right there. Instead, he just cuts off a corner of Saul's garment, or, in another instance, he takes his spear, simply to prove he could have taken revenge, but he actively chose mercy.
A very principled move.
Very. Yet, earlier in the timeline, King Saul gives David this incredibly morbid test. He tells David to bring back 100 Philistine foreskins as a bride price.
It's a brutal part of the text, yeah.
And David goes out and brings back 200. The author of the speech even jokes to the crowd. They say, frankly, that's 200 too many for my liking.
I mean, it gets a nervous laugh, I'm sure.
Right. But seriously, how does his mind not fracture under that cognitive dissonance? It sounds like he possessed a psychological switch.
A switch?
Yeah, like a wartime leader who can order a devastating airstrike in the morning, but then sit gently by the bedside of a sick friend in the afternoon. I mean, most people shatter under that kind of pressure.
Well, what's fascinating here is that this psychological switch is the defining paradox of ancient leadership.
Yeah.
And David just mastered it.
He mastered the paradox.
Exactly. Against existential external threats like the Philistine armies, he is utterly ruthless. He operates with this cold calculus to ensure the survival of his civilization.
Okay.
But internally, toward rivals like Saul who are actively trying to hunt him down, he maintains a strict moral boundary. Saul is still the anointed king, and David refuses to strike him down.
Oh, I see.
So it's not cognitive dissonance. It's a highly disciplined compartmentalization of when to use force and when to show grace.
Now, I want to pause here for you listening, because the author of this speech uses this specific duality to make a very pointed, modern political claim.
Right, this is where it gets contemporary.
Yeah. The author states that modern Israel currently has weak leadership and is surrounded by enemies, and they argue that the uncompromising, ruthless, yet principled nature of a King David is desperately needed right now. They are using David's ancient decisiveness as a rhetorical tool to criticize the present.
That's a vital piece of context, because the author is trying to make a 3,000-year-old figure feel urgently relevant to the people sitting in those synagogue pews today.
So if you look at history, conquerors usually just conquer. Like Genghis Khan didn't drop a hit single.
No, he did not.
And Alexander the Great didn't paint masterpieces. But David has this completely unexpected second act.
He really does. He wasn't just a tactical genius on the battlefield. He was a deeply sensitive, prolific artist.
The author actually uses a hilarious analogy for the local crowd. They call King David the Jimmy Page rock star of his day.
That's a great image.
It is. And they drop a great joke, saying that if you think about it, there are basically only 3 famous harpists anyone can name, and they're all Jewish. King David, Harpo Marx, and the local congregation's own teacher, Rebbetzin Jacqueline.
I love that. It gets a laugh in the room, obviously, but it anchors a profound historical truth.
Which is?
That David's artistry infiltrated global culture in a way that his military conquests simply couldn't. Think about how DNA works in biology. David's musical phrasing is essentially the DNA of modern songwriting.
Oh, wow. Like how?
While the speech points to Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah, which is arguably one of the most iconic songs of the last century, Cohen literally opens the song by referencing the secret chord that David played to please the Lord.
Oh, right. The secret chord. Here's where it gets really interesting, though. If you're listening to this and wondering how a guy playing a harp 3,000 years ago influences your life today, it's not just Spotify playlists.
No, it's everywhere.
It's high art. We're talking about Michelangelo's sculpture of David. The speech argues this statue is Michelangelo's absolute masterpiece, surpassing even the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel.
That's a bold claim, but a fair one.
Though again, the author can't resist a joke, pointing out that Michelangelo later sculpted Moses and accidentally gave him horns due to a mistranslation.
Ah, yes, the infamous horned Moses. But the broader point there is the sheer scale of David's cultural footprint.
Yeah.
And it's not merely the art he created, but the narrative of his life itself. The author claims that David's biography, the intense palace intrigue, the sweeping military victories, his catastrophic personal moral failures, and his desperate pleas for divine forgiveness, it all served as the original template for epic human drama.
Like modern prestige TV.
Exactly. We're talking about the kind of messy, deeply flawed, high-stakes storytelling that inspires modern shows like Game of Thrones. I'd honestly challenge anyone listening to name another historical figure who spans the highest forms of Renaissance marble sculpture, modern pop folk music, and HBO-style television drama.
I genuinely don't think you can. Which leads me to a massive question.
Okay, shoot.
You've got the warrior, the rock star, the guy with adoring crowds chanting his name in the streets. We see modern celebrities completely lose their grip on reality with a fraction of that fame.
Oh, totally.
How did David not become a raging, unbearable narcissist?
Well, because his primary identity, according to the text, wasn't the warrior or the rock star. It was the Torah scholar.
A scholar.
Yeah. His ego was constantly checked by his subordination to a higher power.
The author compares his lyric writing to legendary singer-songwriters like Bob Dylan and Paul Simon. But David's lyrics, the Book of Psalms, known as Tehillim, aren't just clever observations about society.
No, they are much more profound.
The speech describes them as the ultimate, raw manifestation of the yearning of the soul. Its intense vulnerability. I'll read the snippet the author includes from Psalm 23.
Please do.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me.
It's beautiful.
It is, and that is not the writing of an egomaniac.
Exactly. If we connect this to the bigger picture, David wasn't just writing nice poetry on the side to unwind. He was an active link in the transmission of the faith. He served as the spiritual successor to the prophet Samuel. And the text emphasizes that despite having a regal palace and unparalleled luxury at his fingertips, he would rise before the sun even came up to study and pray.
I'm struggling to picture this, honestly, and there's a detail in the text that absolutely blew my mind.
What's that?
The speech mentions that David's concentration on his Torah study was so absolute, so impenetrable, that the angel of death literally could not get near him.
Right, the protective shield of study.
Yeah. The angel of death actually had to create a distraction, tricking David into breaking his concentration for a split second, just to end his life.
It's an incredible image.
It sounds like a mystic who locks himself in a cave away from the world. But David was a king. How do you govern a chaotic physical kingdom when your head is that deep in the spiritual clouds?
Because that intense, monk-like focus wasn't an escape from his royal duties, it was the engine that powered them.
Oh, interesting.
The speech suggests that his total immersion in study provided a spiritual armor. It protected him not just from physical death, but from the moral decay of absolute power. But you're right, he couldn't stay in that private meditative state forever. He had to translate that internal fire into external leadership.
Exactly. He takes that private devotion and makes it the heartbeat of millions of people. And he does this by conquering Jerusalem from the Jebusites and establishing it as David, the city of David.
He creates a center of gravity.
He centralizes the nation around one God and one Torah. And this brings us to what the author claims is the absolute best reason for giving David that final vaccine dose.
Even better than Goliath.
Way better. It's not the Goliath fight, it's not the Psalms. It's the moment David transports the Ark of the Covenant into Jerusalem.
Which is arguably the emotional climax of his entire reign.
The text paints this incredibly vivid scene. You have thousands of people gathering, and David isn't standing on a royal balcony giving a stiff, stoic wave to the peasants.
Not at all.
He is down in the dirt of the street, he is personally handing out gifts of food and drink to the crowds, and he is dancing.
Wildly dancing.
Wildly, leaping in pure ecstasy as the Ark is brought in.
Which, if you know the mechanics of ancient royal courts, was a massive breach of protocol.
Right. His own wife, Michal, who remember was the daughter of the previous king, Saul, she watches this from a window and is appalled.
He's mortified.
She essentially tells him, you are the king of a nation, and you are out there acting like a fool, completely embarrassing the monarchy.
And David's response is legendary.
It is an absolute mic drop. He says, this is exactly why I am king and your father is not. I am here to serve God and God alone, and when the ark is joyfully moved, my role demands that I show the people how to celebrate.
It's a total redefinition of majesty. I mean, Michal thought majesty was about looking superior and untouchable.
Right, the traditional royal image.
But David understood that true majesty is about leading the people in spiritual enthusiasm. He became the chief celebrant.
So what does this all mean for the audience today? Why is the author bringing up a 3,000-year-old street party?
They tie it directly to the present.
Yes. The speech connects that ancient wild exuberance directly to the joy those listeners feel in their own modern lives at Bushey Shul. The author explicitly mentions the contagious excitement of their local leader, Rabbi Elkanan, when he delivers a sermon.
Giving a modern face to that ancient joy.
Exactly. They mention how another teacher, Rabbi Ozer, who is usually quite reserved, suddenly burns with passion when discussing texts. The author is saying that energy is a direct inheritance from David. They literally shout in the text, Am Yisrael Chai! The Jewish people are alive! Don't you feel like dancing right now? Give them the shot!
It is a brilliant piece of rhetoric because it collapses time. The author argues that the emotional high points of their modern community are on the exact same frequency as David's dancing in Jerusalem. History isn't trapped in a book, it's alive in the room.
So David unites the people, he brings the ark to the capital, and naturally, his next thought is permanence. He wants to build a physical temple to house it.
But God tells him no. The actual construction of the temple will be a task for his son, Solomon.
Even though he didn't lay the bricks, David's fingerprints are all over it. The text points out that Psalm 30, which David wrote, was the song used at the temple's dedication. And if you go to a synagogue today, that exact same psalm is still recited every single morning during the Shacharit prayers. But his legacy goes so much deeper than a building. It is quite literally built into the passing of the seasons and the cycle of time.
Let's look at how the calendar works in this context, because the speech brings up a fascinating Talmudic tradition that King David died on the holiday of Shavu.
Okay, the harvest festival.
Right. Now, Shavu is deeply tied to the Book of Ruth, which is customarily read on that day. And Ruth was a Moabite convert who happens to be David's great-grandmother.
Wow, so there's a direct link.
Exactly. The book details the very lineage that leads to David's birth.
And the author uses this to build a stunning metaphor. Because Shavu isn't just a religious date, it is an agricultural milestone. It marks the end of the grain harvest. All the grain in the fields is cut down.
Exactly. And why does reading about his ancestor on the day he died matter? Because it creates a closed loop of memory. The author draws this parallel, just like the grain that is cut down at harvest time, only to be planted in return again and again in the next season to feed the people. David is eternal.
Oh, it's beautiful.
He dies on the harvest festival, but his essence, his lineage, continuously returns to nourish the nation. He is the harvested grain.
And that lineage is staggering. The text traces it out. Moses, Judah, Hillel, all these monumental figures connected through this line. And the ultimate belief is that the final king, Messiah, will be a direct descendant of David.
A descendant who will restore the Davidic line.
Right. Rebuild the temple and bring the world to its ultimate fulfillment.
When you synthesize all these mechanisms, the way he redefined warfare, the way his artistry shaped modern music, his impenetrable scholarship, his exuberant joy, and his eternal presence in the calendar, you see exactly why the author is so fired up.
Totally.
The text cites a teaching from the Rambam, the great medieval philosopher. The Rambam stated that the role of the king is to be the heart of all Israel.
The heart of Israel. If you think about a biological heart, it doesn't do the thinking and it doesn't lift the sword.
Right. It has one job.
Its only job is to pump oxygenated blood out to the extremities so they can do the work. So a king, being the heart, means his job isn't micromanaging the daily affairs of the state. It's pumping spiritual and emotional oxygen into the citizens so they can thrive.
That's a perfect way to phrase it.
No wonder the author is practically screaming at the end of the speech, choose life, given the shot, and the absolute kicker. The author says if David actually got the vaccine and lived longer, he wouldn't use the extra time to conquer more territories or write more hit songs.
What would he do?
He'd use it to sit down and study more Torah.
It perfectly distills the entire argument. He is the ultimate warrior artist whose true power came from his unwavering subordination to something greater than himself.
But as we wrap up, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to ponder. We started by picturing this wild hypothetical debate about giving a literal physical vaccine to a man who lived 3,000 years ago. But think about what the Rambam said, that the king is the biological heart pumping oxygen to the people.
Right.
And think about that metaphor of the harvested grain that continuously returns. Maybe this entire debate about a vaccine is actually a metaphor for us today.
How do you mean?
Well, maybe the author isn't really arguing about saving a man from antiquity. Maybe they're asking a much more urgent question about us. How do we vaccinate our own cultural and spiritual memory?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. In an era where we are constantly distracted, doom scrolling, and losing touch with our roots, how do we give the shot to our history? How do we ensure that the heart of a community continues to beat for the next generation, just like David's legacy did?
That completely shifts the premise.
Doesn't it?
The vaccine in this context isn't a medicine at all. It's our attention. It's our reverence. It's our active participation in keeping that ongoing story alive against the virus of forgetting.
That is exactly it. So as you go about your day, think about that debate in the synagogue. If you held the syringe containing the survival of your own history, your own culture, your own community's memory, who or what would you give your metaphorical last vaccine shot to?
Such a powerful question.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking questions, keep looking for those connections, and we'll catch you next time.